Sketch the graph of f of x is equal to sine x for x being between 0 and 360, labelling the axis intercepts as well as the maximum and minimum points. You are given that 6 cos squared x is equal to 5 sine x. Show that 6 sine squared x minus sine x minus 1 is equal to 0, and solve this equation for x being between 0 and 360. Okay, so it's standard bookwork to draw the graph. So you should label here 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. And because the maximum minimum of sine is 1 and minus 1 respectively, label those. Draw on the graph. You need to just know the graph. Okay, you should know it's just a sketch. Make sure it just looks okay. Mark on the maximum point, because we're told to do that, 91. Mark on the minimum point, 270 minus 1. And then write down the name of the graph, of the equation of the graph, which is y is equal to sine x. Right, if we start with 6 cos squared x is equal to 5 sine x, if we're going to eventually solve this, the problem is we've got a cos and a sine. We don't have the same variable throughout, but we can make this into an equation with just sine in it by using the fact that sine squared plus cos squared x is equivalent to 1. And then rearranging that cos squared x is 1 minus sine squared x. So here, I'm now going to put 1 minus sine squared x. So we've got 6 times 1 minus sine squared x, make sure it's in brackets, is equal to 5 minus sine x. Expanding the brackets, we're going to get 6 minus 6 sine squared x is equal to 5 minus sine x. Adding 6 sine squared x, we're going to get 6 sine squared x minus sine x, and then if we take 6 from the side, we're going to get minus 1. This is what we were required to show. We now have to solve this equation, and it's always a good idea to write down that we're solving it between 0 and 360. Right, this is a quadratic in sine x. You can either use the formula or factorise it. I'm going to attempt to factorise it, so I say the product, which is the number in front of the squared term, times the constant term, is 6 times minus 1, which is minus 6. The sum is minus 1, and then I want two numbers. When I multiply them together, I get minus 6, and I add the same two numbers, I get minus 1. So those are called the factors. With a bit of trial and improvement, you'll come up with minus 3 and 2. So minus 3 times 2 gives me minus 6, and minus 3 plus 2 gives me minus 1. So we now write down 6 sine squared x minus 3 sine x plus 2 sine x. So what we've done, we've split the middle term up here into this. We haven't changed the meaning. Altogether, we still have minus sine x. We still have the minus 1. It's still equal to 0. Then we group the first two terms together, take out the highest common factor, which is 3 sine x, and we're left with 2 sine x minus 1. You can just check that by multiplying back in again. Bring down whatever sign is here, which is plus. Group these two together. There is no common factor. All we're going to say the common factor is 1, and write down 2 sine squared x, and it's still equal to 0. Now, if you do this process correctly, here and here, you'll always end up with the same thing. So that now comes out as a common factor, and you're left with 3 sine x plus 1 is equal to 0. Right, so we can now say either 2 sine x minus 1 is equal to 0. So sine x will be equal to a half, and then sine to the minus 1 of a half is 30 degrees. Now I like to use the South Asian Tennis Club. Some people know this as cast. And now we want to know where the angle is positive, because we've got plus a half here. So that's going to be in the first and the second quadrant. So I draw my angles with the x-axis, which is 30, and here, which is 30, and get that x is equal to 30, or x is equal to 180. Remember, angles go around this way, anti-clockwise. Okay, so that's 0. This will be 180 minus 30. So that gives me 150. Or 3 sine plus 1 is equal to 0, the other factor, which means that sine x is minus 1/3. To to begin with, I'm going to forget that it's minus and just do sine to the minus 1 of 1/3, which is 19.5. Draw another one of these. This time I want to know where the angle's negative. So sine's negative in the third and the fourth quadrant. So I draw my angle in the third against the x-axis, like that. Okay, and now I start from here. So the angle will be 180 plus 19.5, or 360 minus 19.5. So that's 199.5. So 360 minus 19.5, which is 340.5. The final step is to write all the angles out in order of size. So x will be 30, 150, 119, or 340. Sorry, I made a mistake there. Right, a slight mistake, I'm going to correct myself. 199.5, it was that one, or 340.5. Okay, so this has been a video to show you how to draw the graph of sine x, and then form and solve a trig equation using an identity, being able to factorize it, and then solve it using the South Asian Tennis Club method or the CAST method. I hope you've understood, and I thank you very much for watching.